She felt his grip tighten as eyes locked onto them from every corner. "Smile," he murmured, "or we both die here." Why would a mafia boss stake his life on a single mom who came alone? Superscript 3. My cousin Bethany looked flawless in her champagne silk gown, all beading and tulle and 26-year-old certainty about forever. I watched from my assigned seat at table 12, the single-guest overflow section, positioned near the ballroom's side entrance where servers disappeared through velvet curtains with bottles of wine I'd never order by name. The Ravenswood estate was everything a wedding venue aspired to be. Vaulted ceilings with exposed oak beams, crystal chandeliers casting amber light across marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows framing manicured gardens where late-afternoon sun painted everything gold. The kind of place that whispered old bloodlines and carefully curated Instagram moments. I'd left Marcus with my neighbor Mrs. Chen 4 hours ago, my 7-year-old son's questioning eyes still haunting me. He'd wanted to come, to wear the navy blazer we'd found at the consignment shop, to see the fancy party Mommy was attending. But Mrs. Chen, my saving grace and unpaid family, had convinced me otherwise. Formal weddings and second graders with endless questions didn't mix well. Better to keep Marcus home where he could build Lego cities and avoid the family judgment that would inevitably center on me. The judgment had started the moment I'd arrived at 5:45, alone, 31 years old, single mother, wearing an emerald wrap dress I'd splurged on 2 years ago during a moment of optimism that still looked elegant if you didn't notice the subtle fading along the neckline. My Aunt Caroline had intercepted me during the cocktail hour, her Chanel suit and professional highlights radiating the kind of maintenance I couldn't afford. "Lucy, darling, you came by yourself?" That particular inflection that managed to sound concerned while broadcasting disappointment across 3 octaves. "We'd hoped you might bring someone. There are several successful young men here from the Rothstein family. You remember them, don't you? They're in commercial real estate." "I'm fine, Aunt Caroline." I'd manufactured a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Marcus sends his love to Bethany." "Oh, yes, your boy." The way she said boy like he was a complication rather than a person spoke novels. "Still with that elderly neighbor, I assume? Such a shame you can't provide more stability." They'd moved on before I could form a response, circulating among guests who actually mattered. Family who'd married well. Cousins with corner offices and vacation properties. And then there was me, the medical billing specialist who'd abandoned her psychology degree when pregnancy derailed everything, who lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood optimistically described as transitioning. Dinner had been exquisite torture. 5 courses of food I barely tasted while conversations eddied around me. The couple to my right discussed their daughter's acceptance to Yale. The woman across from me displayed a tennis bracelet that probably exceeded my annual salary. I smiled and nodded and calculated whether anyone would notice if I invented a babysitter emergency. Then came the dancing. The DJ announced the couple's first dance, and Bethany glided across the floor in her new husband's arms, all grace and certainty. My parents danced next, decades of partnership on display. My older brother Michael and his architect wife joined them, moving with the easy confidence of people whose lives had unfolded according to plan. Even my younger cousins paired off, laughing beneath lights that softened every imperfection. Outside the windows, shadows had lengthened across the gardens. What had been golden afternoon light was surrendering to dusk, the kind of in-between hour where everything looks slightly unreal. Within minutes, the sky deepened to charcoal, and the first distant rumble of thunder promised a storm the weather app hadn't predicted. "Lucy." My ex-husband's voice behind me triggered an involuntary tension through my shoulders. I turned to find Derek standing there, alone, his new wife Marissa presumably freshening up or networking with her pharmaceutical sales colleagues. He looked exactly like he had 3 years ago when he'd informed me, 2 months after Marcus's birth, that fatherhood wasn't his calling. "We should talk," he said, using that reasonable tone he'd perfected. The one that suggested I was being difficult by existing. "We have nothing to discuss. Come on. We're both adults." He moved closer, invading the careful distance I'd maintained. "I've been meaning to reach out about Marcus. Marissa and I are thinking about starting a family soon, and I'd like him to know his half-siblings." The audacity struck me speechless. This man who'd denied paternity for 6 months. Who'd missed birthdays and Christmases and every important moment of our son's life. Who'd fought me on child support until the court ordered it. Now he wanted to play father because his new wife had decided it was time. "You need to leave." I kept my voice low, controlled. The same tone I used with difficult insurance claims. "I have rights, Lucy. Legal rights. And Marissa thinks it would be healthy for Marcus to." "Lucy Morgan?" The voice came from my left, deep, measured, with an edge that cut through Derek's self-important monologue like a blade. I turned to find a man settling into the empty chair beside me, and the entire energy of the room seemed to shift. He was tall, powerfully built beneath a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car. Light-skinned with dark hair swept back, sharp jawline, and eyes that assessed everything in a single glance. There was something about the way he moved, controlled, deliberate, like a predator perfectly comfortable in his own skin. Derek had stopped mid-sentence, suddenly uncertain. The stranger didn't acknowledge him. His attention remained fixed on me, and when he leaned in, I caught the faint scent of expensive cologne and something else. Danger, maybe, or just absolute confidence. "Act like you're my wife," he whispered, his breath warm against my ear, "and dance with me." For 3 heartbeats, I couldn't process the words. This man, this stranger who commanded attention without raising his voice, who'd silenced Derek with nothing but presence, was asking me to lie. To perform. To pretend. I should have refused. Should have demanded explanations. Should have recognized the risk in whatever game he was playing. Instead, I found myself nodding. He stood, extending one hand toward me with complete certainty that I would take it. His palm was warm, his grip firm without being forceful. When I rose, his other hand settled at the small of my back, possessive and protective simultaneously. "Excuse us," he said to Derek, though it wasn't really a request for permission. As he guided me toward the dance floor, I felt every eye in the ballroom turn toward us. My mother's shocked expression. Aunt Caroline's dropped jaw. Bethany's delighted surprise. Derek's confusion transforming into something uglier. The Mafia boss, because I was suddenly certain that's exactly what he was, pulled me into his arms with practiced ease. One hand held mine, the other remained at my back, keeping me close but not uncomfortably so. "Don't look at them," he murmured, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "Look at me. Smile like you're exactly where you want to be." Outside, lightning flashed across darkening skies. Thunder followed seconds later, closer now. I tilted my head up, met those dangerous eyes, and smiled. "Good," he said softly. "Now let's show them who you really are." And as the music swelled and we moved together like we'd done this 1,000 times before, I realized with absolute clarity that I'd just crossed a line I could never uncross. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. The Mafia boss, Don, as I would come to know him, moved with the kind of confidence that came from never having to prove anything to anyone. His hand at my back was firm, possessive in a way that should have felt invasive but somehow didn't. Instead, it felt like an anchor, grounding me when everything else in the room had tilted sideways. Breathe, he murmured, his mouth close enough to my ear that anyone watching would assume intimacy. You're doing fine. I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath. The music was something classical, strings and piano that the wedding planner had probably selected for its elegant ambience. Dawn guided me through the steps with practiced ease, leading so clearly that even my rusty dancing skills couldn't mess it up. We moved together like we'd rehearsed this, like we belonged to each other. His grip was controlled but never tight, protective without being possessive. Every movement was deliberate, a slight pressure at my back when he wanted me to turn, a gentle pull when he drew me closer. I danced with Derek at our own ill-fated wedding, and it had felt like following instructions. This felt like conversation. You're tense, Dawn said, his voice low and measured. Relax your shoulders. Smile. Look at me like you've done this 1,000 times. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted, barely audible. Neither did I, the first time. The corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile, but close. But no one else needs to know that. I tilted my head back to meet his eyes, and something shifted in my chest. Up close, I could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the shadow of stubble along his jaw, the intensity in his gaze that suggested he was cataloging everything, my expression, my posture, the pulse racing in my throat. Why are you doing this? I asked. Later. His hand tightened fractionally at my back. Right now, you're my wife, and we're very much in love. Can you do that for me? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Good girl. The words shouldn't have sent warmth through my entire body, but they did. Around us, the ballroom had transformed into a theater, and we were the main performance. I could feel the weight of every stare, hear the whispers that had replaced polite conversation. My peripheral vision caught my mother's shocked face, my father's confusion, Aunt Caroline's barely concealed disapproval morphing into something that looked uncomfortably like respect. And Derek. Derek stood frozen near our abandoned table, his expression cycling through disbelief, anger, and something that might have been jealousy. Marissa had returned to his side, whispering urgently in his ear, but his attention remained locked on us. Your ex-husband, Dawn said, a statement, not a question. His gaze had flickered past my shoulder, landing on Derek with the casual assessment of a predator identifying prey. The one who was bothering you. How did you? I pay attention. He spun me gently, bringing us closer together. He won't bother you again tonight. Dawn's car was a black Mercedes S-Class that materialized at the side entrance like it had been waiting in the shadows. A driver appeared, tall, scarred, moving with military precision, and opened the rear door without a word. Get in, Dawn said. I have my own car. Your car is in the main lot, which requires walking through the reception area where at least 4 people are now very interested in who you are. His hand pressed against my lower back, not quite pushing. Get in, Lucy. The rain was coming down in sheets now, soaking through my dress in seconds. I climbed into the car's leather interior, and Dawn slid in beside me. The door closed with a heavy, final sound. Bulletproof, some part of my brain registered distantly. Take us to the River North safe house, Dawn instructed the driver. Perimeter route. Check for tails. The car pulled away smoothly, and only then did I find my voice. Stop. My hands were shaking. Stop the car right now. Dawn didn't even look at the driver. Keep going. I didn't agree to this. My voice rose, fear crystallizing into anger. You don't get to just kidnap me because you decided. I'm not kidnapping you. Dawn's tone remained maddeningly calm. I'm protecting you from the consequences of the last 15 minutes. Protecting me from what? I twisted in the seat to face him fully. You show up, you ask me to pretend to be your wife, you tell my entire family we're married, and now you're taking me to some safe house like that's a normal thing people do. It is when your husband runs the Corleone syndicate. The words hung in the air between us like a blade. What did you just say? Don finally turned to look at me, and his eyes held no apology. My name is Donovan Corleone. I control most of the organized crime operations in the greater Chicago area. Gambling, protection, import, export arrangements that Customs doesn't ask questions about. I have judges in my pocket, politicians on my payroll, and rivals who would very much like to see me dead. My mouth had gone dry. You're a criminal. I'm a businessman who operates in markets the government pretends don't exist. He pulled out his phone, typed something. And as of 20 minutes ago, you became my most visible vulnerability. I didn't ask for this. No. He showed me his phone screen. It was a photo, me and Don on the dance floor, his hand at my waist, my face tilted up toward his, both of us looking like we'd been in love for years. The caption read, Donovan Corleone's mystery wife surfaces at Northside wedding. Sources confirm private ceremony. Who is Lucy Morgan? My stomach dropped. Oh God. There are 4 more posts just like it. Don scrolled through his phone. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. That woman from your cousin's sorority has already tagged 8 people. Your Aunt Caroline is fielding questions in the comments section. And by morning, every rival operation in Chicago will know my alleged wife's name, address, and where her 7-year-old son goes to school. The mention of Marcus hit like a physical blow. No. No, you don't get to, this isn't. I didn't post those photos, Lucy. Don's voice sharpened. Your family did. Your cousin's friends did. They did it because they were shocked that someone like you could land someone like me, and they couldn't wait to broadcast it to the world. I pressed my hands against my face, trying to breathe through the panic. Then we tell them the truth. We say it was a misunderstanding, that we're not actually married. And what do you think happens then? Don leaned forward, forcing me to meet his eyes. You think my enemies will say, oh, our mistake, and move on? They'll see a woman I claimed publicly, then abandoned publicly. They'll see weakness. Uncertainty. And they'll wonder what you know. What you heard. Whether you're a liability that needs to be eliminated. That's insane. That's my world. He sat back, running a hand through his hair. The gesture was the first crack in his composure I'd seen. The man at the wedding. Gray suit, red tie. His name is Viktor Marchenko. He works for the Belinsky organization out of Cicero. They've been pushing into my territory for 6 months, testing boundaries, looking for leverage. And tonight, they found it. Because of a dance. Because I touched you like you mattered. Don's jaw tightened. Because I introduced you as my wife to a room full of people, some of whom have loose lips and expensive debts. Because I made you visible, and in my business, visibility is the same as vulnerability. The car turned onto a side street, the city lights streaking across rain-soaked windows. We were heading north, away from my neighborhood, away from everything familiar. I want to go home, I said quietly. I want to get Marcus and go home. Your home is being watched. Don's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned. 3 unfamiliar vehicles on your street in the last 30 minutes. One parked directly across from your building. Ice flooded my veins. You're lying. He turned the phone toward me. Live security footage showed my street, and a dark sedan parked under the broken streetlight, engine running. Mrs. Chen called my security line 10 minutes ago, Dawn continued. She's a smart woman. She saw the car, recognized something was wrong, found the emergency number. I had my people leave with every business owner on your block 6 months ago. 6 months. You've been watching me for 6 months? I've been watching everyone who might be useful. Dawn's bluntness was almost worse than a lie. You worked medical billing at Northwestern. You had access to patient records, insurance information, financial data on some very wealthy families. You were a potential asset. Then tonight, you became something else entirely. A liability. A complication. He met my eyes. But one I'm responsible for. Which means I keep you alive. The car pulled into an underground parking garage, security gates closing behind us with mechanical finality. We were in River North now. I recognized the architecture even through the rain. Expensive real estate. The kind of neighborhood where people paid not to notice things. The driver opened my door. I didn't move. I can't just disappear, I said. I have a job. Marcus has school. My life doesn't stop because you decided. Your life stopped the moment those photos went online. Dawn climbed out, then turned back to me. But your son's life doesn't have to. Come upstairs. Let me show you what we're dealing with. Then you can make an informed choice about what happens next. I don't trust you. Smart. He offered his hand. But trust and survival aren't the same thing. I stared at his outstretched palm, the hand that had held mine on the dance floor, that had guided me through a lie I was still drowning in. Every instinct screamed to run. But where would I run to? Home, where strange cars were circling. To my family, who'd just broadcast my face across social media. To the police, who apparently worked for Dawn anyway. I took his hand. The elevator required a keycard and a thumbprint. We rode up in silence, the Mafia boss beside me looking at his phone while I tried not to hyperventilate. The doors opened directly into a penthouse apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than I made in 5 years, art on the walls that looked museum quality. Sit, Dawn said, gesturing to a leather couch. I'll get you water. He disappeared into what I assumed was a kitchen. I remained standing, too wired to sit, taking in details with the kind of hyperfocus that came with shock. Security cameras in the corners. Reinforced door. Windows that were probably bulletproof like the car. Dawn returned with 2 glasses of water and a tablet computer. He set them on the coffee table. This is what you need to understand, he said, pulling up a series of photographs. These were taken at the wedding. Different angles, different moments, all posted within 20 minutes of us leaving. I forced myself to look. There we were, dancing, touching, looking at each other like the rest of the world had fallen away. In one photo, his lips were at my ear, whispering those first instructions. In another, my hand rested against his chest, intimate and trusting. We look. I couldn't finish the sentence. Convincing, Dawn supplied. Which is the problem? My enemies won't believe this is fake because it doesn't look fake. And even if I release a statement saying it was a misunderstanding, the damage is done. You're marked now. Connected to me. Fair game. He swiped to another image. My apartment building, photographed from across the street. The timestamp was from 30 minutes ago. This is the Belinsky organization establishing surveillance, Dawn continued. They'll follow you. Photograph Marcus. Map out your routine. And when they think they have enough leverage, they'll make contact. Maybe an accident that isn't quite an accident. Maybe a polite conversation that includes photographs of your son at school. Maybe they skip the subtlety and just take him. Stop. My voice broke. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to make you understand what you're in. Dawn set down the tablet. I didn't plan this, Lucy. I saw a woman being harassed by her ex, and I saw an opportunity to solve two problems at once. I needed a wife for the evening to discourage some unwanted attention. You needed rescue from a persistent asshole. It should have been simple. But we were too convincing. And the wrong people were watching. He stood, pacing to the windows. Rain streaked down the glass behind him. Viktor Marchenko left the wedding 30 seconds after we did. His people are already moving. By tomorrow morning, every syndicate in the Midwest will know I have a wife. They'll start asking questions. Looking for pressure points. Testing whether you're someone I'd actually protect or just a convenient fiction. So tell them I'm fiction. And put a target on your back that says, expendable witness? Dawn turned, and for the first time, I saw something almost like regret in his expression. At least as my wife, you're valuable. Worth keeping alive. My phone buzzed in my clutch. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Text from Mrs. Chen. Lucy, strange car outside. Man watching building. Should I call police? Marcus is asking for you, asterisk. I showed Don the message. He read it, nodded once. I'll have someone escort them to a secure location. Mrs. Chen and Marcus. Tonight. No arguments. You're not taking my son. I'm keeping your son safe, Don interrupted. Which is more than you can do right now. My people will bring them here. You'll see Marcus in 90 minutes. But Lucy, his eyes held mine. Once he's in my protection, there's no pretending this isn't real anymore. You understand that? I understood. God help me, I understood. I was no longer Lucy Morgan, struggling single mother with a quiet life. I was the Mafia boss's wife. And there was no going back. Marcus arrived at midnight, drowsy and confused, clutching his stuffed dinosaur while Mrs. Chen fussed over him in Mandarin. Don's security team had retrieved them with such efficient discretion that my son thought it was an adventure, a late-night visit to Mommy's friend's fancy apartment. I held him until he fell asleep in the guest bedroom, his small body warm against mine, breathing steady. Safe. For now. Don had given us space, disappearing into his office with hushed phone calls and the tap of keyboards. By the time I emerged, dawn was breaking over the Chicago River in shades of amber and gray. He was at the kitchen counter, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie discarded, looking more human than I'd seen him. Coffee was brewing. The expensive kind that smelled like comfort I couldn't afford. He's sleeping, I said quietly. Don nodded, pouring 2 cups without asking if I wanted one. Mrs. Chen is in the second guest room. My people will bring her groceries, medications, anything she needs. You can't keep us here forever. I can keep you alive. He slid a cup across the counter. Everything else is negotiable. My phone buzzed. I'd been ignoring calls from my mother, Bethany, and Aunt Caroline all night. But this was a Chicago number I recognized with sickening clarity, Derek's attorney. I let it go to voicemail. Don watched me with those calculating eyes. Your ex? His lawyer. I wrapped both hands around the coffee cup. They'd been threatening to reopen custody discussions. Derek wants Marcus for alternating holidays now that he's established stable family life with Vanessa. The voicemail notification appeared. Against my better judgment, I played it on speaker. MS. Morgan, this is Richard Carlson with Brennan and Associates. We've become aware of concerning developments regarding your living situation and associations. Mr. Harrison has requested an emergency custody review. Recent social media posts indicate you've entered into a relationship with an individual of questionable character and known criminal connections. We'll be filing with family court Monday morning. I suggest you retain counsel. These situations rarely favor mothers who demonstrate such spectacularly poor judgment. Asterisk. The message ended. I stared at my phone, rage and fear warring in my chest. He's using you, I said flatly. Derek's using you to take my son. Don's expression had gone cold in a way that made me believe every rumor about what he was capable of. Give me 12 hours. To do what? To make this problem disappear. He pulled out his phone. I have attorneys who specialize in making nuisances go away. I also have very detailed information about Derek Harrison's finances, including the embezzlement from his wife's family accounts and the offshore holdings he's neglected to report to the IRS. I set down my coffee cup. You investigated my ex-husband? I investigate everyone connected to my interests. Don's tone suggested this should be obvious. Derek Harrison is a mediocre parasite who married into money he doesn't deserve. Taking him apart legally will be easier than ordering lunch. I don't want your criminal empire fighting my custody battle. Then what do you want? Don moved closer, and I hated how safe that felt. You want to face him alone? Let him use me as ammunition while I stand back and watch? I put you in this situation, Lucy. I fix it. By doing what, exactly? Having him killed? By having my attorneys file countercharges before he finishes his morning coffee. Don's voice was sharp. By presenting evidence of his financial crimes, his parental neglect, his pattern of harassment. By fighting him in court like a civilized person, which I'm entirely capable of when the situation calls for it. I wanted to argue. Wanted to maintain my independence, my pride, my illusion that I could handle this alone. But Marcus was asleep down the hall, and Derek's lawyer was already drafting papers, and I was so tired of fighting battles I couldn't win. I don't want to owe you, I whispered. Something shifted in Don's expression, something almost gentle. You don't owe me anything. I owe you. I made you visible. I made you vulnerable. Keeping you safe isn't a favor. It's my responsibility. My phone rang again. My mother this time. I silenced it. She's been calling all night, I said. They all have. Wanting details about my secret husband, my secret wedding, my secret life. What did you tell them? Nothing. I don't even know what the truth is anymore. I looked up at him. Are we really married in your world? Or am I just an inconvenient prop you're stuck protecting? Don was quiet for a long moment. In my world, you're whatever I say you are. And right now, I'm saying you matter. That means something. What does it mean? It means you stay here until the threat is neutralized. He held my gaze. It means my attorneys handle Derek. My security watches your family. And you don't leave this building without someone who knows how to take a bullet. That's not living. That's hiding. That's surviving long enough to figure out what living looks like after. Don's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned. Viktor Marchenko just posted bail for 3 of his street enforcers. They were arrested last month for assault. Suddenly their charges are dropped, and they're back on the street. That's not coincidence. The implications settled over me like ice water. They're coming for me. They're positioning pieces on the board. Don pocketed his phone. Which means we position ours first. So I'm asking, Lucy, are you in? Temporary protection, temporary partnership, until we resolve this? I thought of Marcus sleeping safely down the hall. Of Derek's threats. Of my apartment with strange cars circling. Of the life I'd built alone, brick by careful brick, now crumbling under the weight of one dance. Temporarily, I said. Until Marcus is safe. Then we figure out how I get my life back. Don extended his hand. Deal. I shook it, and tried not to think about how many deals with the devil started exactly this way. With good intentions. And no way out. 3 days in Don's penthouse felt like 3 months. Marcus adjusted with the resilience of 7-year-olds, turning the second guest room into a fort and declaring Mrs. Chen's dumplings better than restaurant ones. I adjusted by pacing, working remotely on my laptop, and trying not to notice how Don's presence filled every room he entered. The boundaries were established on day 2. You have the East Wing, Don had said, standing in the hallway like we were negotiating territory. I'm in the West. Kitchen and living areas are shared. My office is off limits. You don't answer the door. You don't leave without Marco or Vincent accompanying you. Marco and Vincent turned out to be his primary security. Former military, unfailingly polite, and capable of looking menacing while helping Marcus with his math homework. These are prison rules, I'd said. These are survival rules. Don's tone left no room for argument. Follow them, and your son stays safe. I followed them. For 48 hours. Then Marcus got sick. It started with a cough on Tuesday night, escalated to a fever by Wednesday morning. Mrs. Chen hovered anxiously while I took his temperature, 102.3, and tried not to panic. It was probably just a cold, but Marcus had had pneumonia twice as a toddler, and my medical instincts were screaming to be careful. Don found me at 3 a.m. in Marcus's room, pressing a cool cloth to my son's forehead while he slept fitfully. How high? Don asked quietly from the doorway. It broke an hour ago. He's at 99.8 now. I didn't look up. I should take him to the doctor. I'll have someone come here. He needs his pediatrician. Dr. Reeves knows his history. I'll bring Dr. Reeves here. Don pulled out his phone. What's the clinic? I told him. He made a call, spoke in low tones, and 20 minutes later confirmed that Dr. Reeves would arrive at 8 a.m. with Marcus's full medical file. How did you? I started. Dr. Reeves's daughter goes to the same private school as my godson, Don said. People do favors when asked correctly. I should have been disturbed by how easily he manipulated the world. Instead, I felt overwhelmingly grateful. Marcus woke up as Don was leaving. Is that your friend, Mommy? Don paused in the doorway. I saw something flicker across his face, uncertainty, maybe, which looked foreign on him. Yeah, baby, I said softly. That's Don. He's helping us right now. Why? Marcus's voice was hoarse from coughing. Don surprised me by walking back, crouching beside the bed so he was eye level with my son. Because your mom is important. And that makes you important too. Are you her boyfriend? Marcus asked with 7-year-old bluntness. Marcus, I started. Would that be okay with you? Don asked, ignoring me entirely. Marcus considered this with serious brown eyes. Do you make her sad? The question landed like a physical blow. Dawn's jaw tightened. I'm trying not to. My dad made her sad. A lot. Marcus's matter-of-fact tone broke something in my chest. If you make her sad, you have to leave. That's the rule. Dawn nodded slowly. That's a good rule. I'll remember that. He stood, met my eyes over Marcus's head, and left without another word. Dr. Reeves diagnosed a mild respiratory infection, prescribed antibiotics, and accepted Dawn's generous consultation fee, without asking questions about why a medical billing specialist was living in a River North penthouse. By Thursday, Marcus was improving. By Friday, I was going stir-crazy. I found Dawn in his office despite the off-limits rule, working through papers that he quickly covered when I entered. We need to talk, I said. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. You broke boundary number 3. You're restructuring your entire operation because of me. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. Who told you that? Vincent. He didn't mean to. He was on the phone, talking about the boss going soft and new rules about civilian exposure. I crossed my arms. You're changing how you do business. Because Marcus and I are here. I'm being more careful. You're compromising your position. I moved closer to his desk. I heard Marco tell someone you turned down a deal. Something about too much heat, too much risk. You've never cared about heat or risk before. I've never had a 7-year-old asking if I make his mother sad before. Dawn's voice was quiet, dangerous. Priorities shift. I won't be the reason you lose power. I won't be leverage, and I won't be a weakness that gets you killed. The words came out harder than I intended. If protecting me costs you everything, then I'm leaving. Today. No. You don't get to. I'm not letting anything happen to you because some rivals think they can exploit you. Dawn stood, moving around the desk with controlled intensity. You think I'm compromising? I'm adapting. There's a difference. To what? A life where you have to worry about a single mother and her kid? That's not your world, Dawn. You said so yourself, visibility is vulnerability. Then I'll be vulnerable. He was close now, close enough that I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of decisions I'd never understand. You want honesty? Here it is. Yes, I'm changing operations. Yes, I'm taking fewer risks. Yes, I turned down a deal that would have netted me $2 million because it involved the kind of violence I don't want anywhere near this building. Near you. Near Marcus. Why? My voice broke on the word. Why does it matter? We're not really married. This isn't real. Dawn's hand came up, cupping my jaw with unexpected gentleness. Isn't it? The air between us felt electric, dangerous. I should step back. Should maintain the boundaries. Should remember this was temporary. I didn't move. I need you to promise me something, I whispered. Name it. Don't protect me like I'm property. Protect me like I'm a person who gets to make choices. Even if those choices are dangerous. Even if they're stupid. I held his gaze. I won't be owned. Not by Derek, not by fear, and not by you. Dawn's thumb traced my cheekbone. I'm not trying to own you, Lucy. I'm trying to keep you alive long enough to figure out what the hell this is. What is this? I don't know. His honesty was almost worse than a lie. But I know I haven't felt this afraid of losing something in 10 years. And I know your son has better instincts than most of my associates. And I know that if Viktor Marchenko or anyone else tries to use you as leverage, I will burn their entire organization to ash. That's not reassuring. It's the truth. He stepped back, giving me space I suddenly didn't want. You want choice? Here's yours. Stay. Not as my prisoner. As my partner. Equal say in security decisions. Full transparency about threats. And when this is over, when you're safe, you walk away if that's what you want. No strings. No debts. And if I stay? Then we figure out what this becomes. Together. I should have said no. Should have demanded my independence, my old life, my illusion of control. Instead, I said, temporarily. Until the threats are gone. Then we reassess. Don's smile was slight, genuine. Temporarily. But we both knew it was already too late for temporary. Some lines, once crossed, changed everything. The flowers arrived on Saturday morning, 24 white lilies in an expensive crystal vase. No card. No message. Vincent took one look at them and reached for his gun. Don't touch those, he barked at Mrs. Chin, who'd opened the door to accept the delivery. He was already on his phone, calling Don, who was in a meeting downtown. Boss, we have a problem. I knew what lilies meant. I'd worked in hospitals long enough to know the flowers people sent to funerals. Don arrived within 15 minutes, Marco and 3 other men I'd never seen flanking him. He studied the arrangement with cold fury, then pulled out a small card tucked beneath the vase that the delivery person must have left. Beautiful family you're protecting. Would be a shame if something happened to them. VM. Asterisk. Viktor Marchenko. Get Lucy and the boy to the vault, Don said quietly. Now. The vault? I stepped forward before Vincent could hustle me away. What vault? Reinforced safe room. Bulletproof. Sealed. Don was already moving, checking windows, positioning his men. You'll stay there until. Until what? Until you go to war over a bouquet? I grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at me. Don, think about this. I am thinking. He threatened you. He threatened Marcus. There's nothing to think about. His eyes were ice. This is what happens when people cross lines. And what happens to Marcus if you get killed retaliating? What happens to me? My voice rose. You think I can just hide in a vault while you burn Chicago down? That's exactly what you do. Don's tone left no room for argument. This is my world, Lucy. You don't get a vote. Like hell I don't. I stepped between him and Vincent. You told me I was a partner. That I get a say in security decisions. So here's my say, no war. Not over flowers. He knows where we live. He knows Marcus exists. Don's control was fraying. This isn't a negotiation, it's a declaration. Then let me negotiate. The room went silent. Marco actually laughed until he saw I was serious. Absolutely not, Don said flatly. Why? Because I'm a woman? Because I'm not part of your world? I crossed my arms. I've spent 7 years negotiating with insurance companies who'd rather let children die than approve treatments. I've negotiated with my ex-husband's lawyers, with hospital administrators, with landlords who wanted to evict me for being 2 days late on rent. I know how to talk to people who think they have all the power. Viktor Marchenko isn't an insurance company. No, he's a man who wants leverage. I held Don's gaze. And right now, I'm that leverage. Which means I'm also the one person who might be able to defuse this without bloodshed. Don's jaw tightened. He'll see it as weakness. Or he'll see it as strength. A woman willing to face him directly instead of hiding behind her husband's guns. I softened my voice. Don, you said you're trying not to be the man who solves everything with violence. Prove it. Let me try. The silence stretched. Marco and Vincent exchanged looks that clearly said the boss has lost his mind. Finally, Don spoke. If I allow this, and that's a massive if, you don't go alone. You don't negotiate terms I haven't approved. And the second I think you're in danger, you're out. Non-negotiable. I can work with that. I haven't agreed yet. Don pulled out his phone, typed something. I need to make calls. Figure out if Marchenko will even meet. But Lucy, his eyes burned into mine. If this goes wrong, if he even looks at you the wrong way, there won't be negotiations afterward. There will only be consequences. Understood? I nodded. Say it. I understand. Don stepped closer, his voice dropping to something only I could hear. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met or the most foolish. I haven't decided which. Maybe both. His hand came up, almost touching my face before he stopped himself. If something happens to you. It won't. You don't know that. Neither do you. I held his gaze. But I know hiding won't fix this. And I know Marcus deserves better than a mother who teaches him to cower. Don's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. Marchenko will meet. Neutral location. Tomorrow at noon. Public restaurant, civilian witnesses, which means minimal risk of outright violence. What's the catch? He wants you there. Specifically. Don's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. He wants to meet the woman who tamed Donovan Corleone. His words. Fear licked up my spine, but I kept my voice steady. Then I'll meet him. This is a mistake. Probably. I managed a shaky smile. But it's my mistake. That was the deal, remember? I get to make choices. Even dangerous ones. Don stared at me for a long moment, something complicated moving behind his eyes. Then he turned to Marco. Full security detail. Snipers on adjacent buildings. Sweep the restaurant beforehand. And if anything, anything feels wrong, we extract her immediately. Yes, boss. Don looked back at me. You have 12 hours to change your mind. I won't. I know. He said it like a man watching someone walk toward a cliff. That's what terrifies me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stood at the windows overlooking the river, watching lights reflect off dark water, and wondered what kind of person I'd become. 3 weeks ago, I was invisible. Forgotten. Safe in my smallness. Now I was preparing to face a rival mafia boss over brunch. You should rest. Don's voice came from behind me. He'd changed into dark clothes, all black, tactical. Preparing for war even while hoping for peace. Can't. I didn't turn around. I keep thinking about Marcus. What I'm teaching him by doing this. You're teaching him that his mother doesn't hide from monsters. Don moved beside me, close enough that I felt his warmth. That's not nothing. Or I'm teaching him that his mother makes reckless choices that get people killed. You won't die tomorrow, Lucy. I won't allow it. I finally looked at him. You can't control everything. Watch me. The absolute certainty in his voice should have been arrogant. Instead, it felt like a promise. Tomorrow, you walk into that restaurant as my wife. My equal. And Viktor Marchenko learns what happens when someone threatens what's mine. I'm not yours. Aren't you? His hand found mine in the darkness. Because it feels like I'm yours too. And that terrifies me more than any rival ever could. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression shuddering. Meetings confirmed. Noon tomorrow. Ashford's on Michigan Avenue. He squeezed my hand once, then released it. Get some rest. Tomorrow, you become the most dangerous woman in Chicago. How? Dawn's smile was sharp, predatory. By proving you're not afraid of any of us. The meeting took place in a private dining room at Gibson's Bar and Steakhouse, neutral territory, expensive enough to suggest civility, public enough to discourage immediate violence. The Mafia boss had argued for 3 hours about me attending. I'd simply put on the black sheath dress his people had procured, pulled my hair into a severe bun, and walked to the door. You don't have to prove anything, he'd said quietly. I'm not proving anything. I'm ending this. I'd met his eyes. They targeted my son. I don't hide from that. Now I sat beside the Mafia boss at a table that felt more like a battlefield, with Viktor Marchenko directly across from us. He was older than I'd expected, mid-50s, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. 2 of his men flanked him, stone-faced and dangerous. Mrs. Corleone. Victor's accent carried traces of Eastern Europe buried under decades of American assimilation. Finally, we meet properly. Your husband has been quite protective of you, Mr. Marchenko. I kept my voice level, channeling every difficult conversation I'd ever navigated with insurance companies who denied coverage for dying children. I understand you have concerns about territorial boundaries. Victor's eyebrows rose slightly. He'd expected fear, maybe tears. Not boardroom composure. My concern, he said carefully, is that your husband has become distracted. Deals that should be simple have become complicated. Operations that were approved are suddenly reconsidered. This is bad for business. Because of me. I stated it flatly, not a question. Because of what you represent. Victor leaned back, studying me like I was an equation he couldn't solve. Donovan Corleone does not have weaknesses. He does not make emotional decisions. He certainly does not restructure his entire operation for a woman he's known 2 weeks. 3 weeks, the Mafia boss interjected coldly. The timeline is irrelevant. Victor's attention remained on me. What matters is that certain people believe they can use you to pressure him. Others believe you are strategic placement, that perhaps Mrs. Corleone is not the innocent she appears. And you? I asked. What do you believe? I believe, Victor said slowly, that you are either the smartest woman in Chicago, or the most dangerous liability Donovan has ever taken on. I would very much like to know which. The threat hung in the air. Beside me, I felt the Mafia boss tense, preparing for whatever came next. This was the moment, where violence became inevitable, where protection required bloodshed. Unless I changed the equation entirely. Mr. Marchenko, may I be frank? I didn't wait for permission. You're right. I am a complication. My presence has forced the Mafia boss to reconsider operations, to prioritize differently, to turn down deals that no longer align with his values. And that makes me either weakness or weapon, depending on perspective. Lucy, the Mafia boss started. I held up one hand, silencing him. Victor's eyes gleamed with interest. But here's what you're missing, I continued. The Mafia boss isn't weaker because of me. He's more strategic. The deals he's turned down? They would have brought federal attention he doesn't need. The operations he's restructured? They eliminate exposure points that were already vulnerable. I've seen his files, Mr. Marchenko. I work in medical billing. I understand risk assessment, cost-benefit analysis, long-term liability. Victor leaned forward slightly. Go on. You think targeting me gives you leverage? It doesn't. It just proves you don't understand what I represent. I met his gaze without flinching. I'm not here because the Mafia boss needs to protect a weakness. I'm here because you need to understand something fundamental. The world is changing. The old ways, intimidation, violence, territorial wars, they're becoming obsolete. Federal oversight is increasing. Digital surveillance is everywhere. The organizations that survive the next decade won't be the most brutal. They'll be the smartest. And you're offering what, exactly? Victor's tone was skeptical but intrigued. Management consulting for organized crime? I'm offering perspective. I glanced at the Mafia boss, who was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. The Mafia boss is adapting because adaptation is survival. You can interpret that as weakness and start a war that will cost both of you territory, money, and lives. Or you can recognize that maybe, just maybe, there's a smarter play. Which is collaboration instead of conflict. I pulled out my phone, opened the notes the Mafia boss and I had drafted last night during another argument about whether I should be present. The Mafia boss controls North Side operations. You have South Side and Western suburbs. There's a 14-block overlap area that you've been fighting over for 6 months. It's costing both of you money in enforcement, creating unnecessary federal attention, and accomplishing nothing except mutual bleeding. I slid my phone across the table. Victor glanced at the screen, then at me. You want us to split territory? I want you to stop wasting resources on a pissing contest. My bluntness seemed to surprise him. That overlap area? It's being gentrified. In 3 years, it won't be profitable for either of you anyway. But right now, it's valuable enough that you're both spending more defending it than you're earning from it. That's bad business. Victor studied the proposal. And in exchange? The Mafia boss backs off the River North expansion he's been planning. You get that territory without a fight. He focuses on consolidating North Side operations, making them more efficient, less visible. You get South Side without interference. Everybody saves money, avoids war, and positions for long-term sustainability instead of short-term dominance. The silence stretched. Victor's men looked at each other. The Mafia boss's jaw was tight, but he didn't contradict me. You would give up River North? Victor asked the Mafia boss directly. For peace, the Mafia boss said quietly, and for her safety. Yes. It was the admission of vulnerability that should have been fatal. In the Mafia boss's world, admitting you'd sacrifice for someone was admitting they could be used against you. But I'd reframed the narrative. Made vulnerability look like strategy. Made sacrifice look like smart business. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up his wine glass, took a slow sip. Mrs. Corleone, he said finally, you are not what I expected. Few people are, when you actually listen to them. A smile tugged at Victor's mouth, brief, genuine. Your husband is a fortunate man. He turned to the Mafia boss. I accept your proposal. River North is mine. The overlap territory splits as outlined. And Mrs. Corleone remains untouched. Anyone who violates that last term answers to both of us. The Mafia boss's hand found mine under the table, squeezed once. Relief and something else, pride, maybe. Agreed, the Mafia boss said. Victor stood, his men following. I look forward to more productive conversations. Perhaps next time, Mrs. Corleone should lead the negotiations from the start. She's far more reasonable than you are. After they left, the Mafia boss turned to me. You just gave away $2 million in annual revenue. I just saved your life, I countered. And mine. And Marcus's. That's worth more than money. The Mafia boss's expression was unreadable. Then he leaned in, pressed his forehead to mine. You terrify me. Good. Now you know how I've felt for 3 weeks. His laugh was quiet, real. And for the first time since that dance at the wedding, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we'd survive this. Together. The custody hearing was scheduled for Thursday morning at the Daily Center, exactly 1 week after Viktor Marchenko had agreed to peace. Derek's attorney had pushed for emergency proceedings, citing immediate danger to the minor child based on my association with the Mafia boss. I'd expected the Mafia boss to send lawyers, muscle, maybe both. Instead, he drove me himself in an unremarkable sedan, no security detail, no show of force. You sure about this? I asked as we pulled into the parking garage. You don't need me to intimidate him, the Mafia boss said quietly. You need me to watch you destroy him legally. There's a difference. Derek was already in the hallway outside courtroom 302, flanked by his attorney Richard Carlson and Vanessa, who looked uncomfortably pregnant and supremely irritated to be present. Derek's eyes widened when he saw me, then narrowed when the Mafia boss appeared at my side. You brought him? Derek's voice carried across the hallway. To a custody hearing? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Lucy's judgment is completely. Mr. Harrison. My attorney, Patricia Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen, but equally formidable, stepped between us with the efficiency of someone who dealt with difficult men her entire career. I'd suggest you save your arguments for the judge. Patricia was one of the Mafia boss's people, but she'd made it clear from our first meeting, I don't win cases through intimidation. I win through preparation. If you want your son, we do this right. We did it right. The hearing began at 9 a.m. sharp. Judge Martha Reeves, also no relation to Marcus's pediatrician, reviewed the emergency petition with the kind of skepticism that made me think Derek's lawyer had overplayed his hand. Mr. Carlson, Judge Reeves said, peering over her reading glasses, you're alleging that Ms. Morgan's current living situation poses immediate danger to the minor child. Can you substantiate that claim? Carlson stood, smoothing his tie. Your Honor, Ms. Morgan has entered into a relationship with Donovan Corleone, a known associate of organized crime. She's residing in his property with the child, exposing him to an environment of criminal activity. Has Mr. Corleone been convicted of any crimes? Judge Reeves interrupted. Carlson faltered. Not convicted, Your Honor, but his reputation. Reputation isn't evidence, Mr. Carlson. Do you have proof of criminal activity in the residence where the child is staying? The mere association is not grounds for emergency custody modification. Judge Reeves turned to Patricia. Ms. Chen, does your client wish to respond? Patricia stood. Your Honor, we have several items to present. First, Dr. Samuel Reeves's medical report confirming Marcus Harrison is healthy, well-adjusted, and receiving excellent care. Second, statements from Marcus's teacher at Lincoln Elementary noting improved attendance and academic performance over the past 3 weeks. Third, character references from neighbors and colleagues attesting to Ms. Morgan's parenting. She slid a folder across to the judge, then turned to face Derek with surgical precision. We also have evidence regarding Mr. Harrison's fitness as a parent and his motivations for this petition. Derek's attorney stood quickly. Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Harrison's character isn't. Mr. Harrison initiated this petition, Judge Reeves said dryly. His character is absolutely relevant. Continue, Ms. Chen. Patricia pulled out another folder. Mr. Harrison has paid child support exactly twice in 7 years, both times after court orders. He's missed 17 scheduled visitations without notice. He's sent his son 3 birthday cards total. And yet he's now petitioning for alternating holidays and increased custody. I've been building stability, Derek protested. My wife and I are starting a family. Your wife's family, Patricia interrupted, whose finances you've been systematically embezzling. She handed documents to the judge. Bank records showing unauthorized transfers from the Martinelli Family Trust. Offshore accounts in Mr. Harrison's name. Tax returns that don't match his actual income. We've already forwarded this information to the IRS and the Cook County State's Attorney. The color drained from Derek's face. Vanessa turned to stare at him, her expression shifting from irritation to dawning horror. You told me those were investment accounts, she hissed. Your Honor, Carlson was scrambling now. These allegations are. We haven't had time to review. This is highly irregular. What's irregular, Judge Reeves said coldly, is filing emergency custody petitions to distract from financial crimes. Ms. Chen, is there more? One more item, Your Honor. Patricia's voice was diamond sharp. Mr. Harrison sent this text message to Ms. Morgan 3 days ago. She projected it onto the courtroom screen. Derek's words glowed for everyone to see. You think your mobster boyfriend scares me? I'll drag you through every court in Illinois. I'll make sure Marcus knows his mother chose a criminal over his father. This isn't over until I say it's over, asterisk. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. That, Patricia said quietly, is not a father concerned about his child's welfare. That's a man using his son as a weapon because his pride was wounded. Judge Reeves removed her glasses, fixing Derek with a look that could strip paint. Mr. Harrison, I've presided over family court for 19 years. I've seen bitter divorces, I've seen parents weaponize children, and I've seen people lie under oath. But I have rarely seen someone abuse the court system with this level of transparent malice. Your Honor, I can explain. You're done explaining. Judge Reeves turned to me. Ms. Morgan, I'm denying the emergency petition. Mr. Harrison's current visitation rights are suspended pending investigation into these financial allegations. If he wishes to pursue custody in the future, he'll need to demonstrate sustained responsibility, financial transparency, and genuine interest in his child's well-being. She looked back at Derek. Which, based on this evidence, seems unlikely. The gavel struck. It was over. Derek lunged toward me in the hallway, rage overriding common sense. You think you've won? You've destroyed my life. The Mafia boss didn't move. Didn't threaten. Just stood beside me, solid and immovable, while Patricia stepped between us. Mr. Harrison, if you continue this harassment, we'll file for a restraining order. I suggest you focus on the federal investigation heading your way. Derek stared at me, at the Mafia boss, at the ruins of whatever fantasy he'd constructed. Then Vanessa grabbed his arm, tears streaming down her face, and pulled him away. Outside, Chicago's sun broke through November clouds. I stood on the courthouse steps, breathing in freedom that tasted like vindication. "You okay?" the Mafia boss asked quietly. I turned to him. "I'm better than okay. I'm done." Done? Done being afraid of him. Done letting him control my narrative. Done. I smiled, and it felt like the first real smile in years. Marcus is safe. Legally, financially, completely safe. The Mafia boss's hand found mine. "You did that. Not me. Patricia gave you tools, but you stood up there and refused to break." "We did it," I corrected. "Together." And for the first time since that whispered request at a wedding, I believed it might actually be true. 2 weeks after the custody hearing, the Mafia boss sat across from me at the kitchen island, morning coffee between us, and offered me my freedom. Victor's holding his end. Derek's facing federal charges. The Rothstein family is restructuring under new management, people who understand the value of peace. He traced the rim of his cup, not quite meeting my eyes. "The threats are gone, Lucy. You can go home." Marcus was at school. Mrs. Chen had returned to her apartment 3 days ago with a month's rent mysteriously paid in advance and a standing invitation to Sunday dinners. The penthouse felt too quiet without her humming in the kitchen. "Home," I repeated. The word felt strange. To my one-bedroom apartment with the broken heating and the neighbor who plays bass at 2 a.m.? I'd fix the heating. And the neighbor. A ghost of a smile. "But yes. Your life. The one you built before I complicated it." I studied him in the morning light, this man who'd rewritten my entire existence with a whispered request on a dance floor. He looked tired. The kind of tired that came from carrying weight no one else could see. What if I don't want that life back? His eyes finally met mine, guarded. "Lucy. What if I want this one?" I set down my coffee cup. Not because I'm afraid. Not because I need protection. But because somewhere between that dance and this morning, this became real for me. "You deserve better than this." His voice was rough. Better than a man whose business is violence. Better than looking over your shoulder. Better than explaining to Marcus why his mother chose. Stop. I moved around the island, standing close enough to see the conflict in his expression. "You don't get to decide what I deserve." I do. And what I deserve is someone who sees me. Who doesn't try to fix me or save me or diminish me. Someone who lets me walk into a negotiation with the most dangerous man in Chicago because he trusts I can handle it. I was terrified you'd get hurt. But you let me choose. I reached up, touching his jaw. That's the difference, Dawn. Derek tried to control me through fear. You give me weapons and step back. That's not protection. That's partnership. The Mafia boss caught my hand, pressed it against his chest where his heart was beating too fast. Partnership in my world means danger. It means Marcus grows up knowing what I am. It means you can never be certain which phone call is the last one. It means truth. I held his gaze. I've spent 7 years pretending I was fine alone. Pretending I didn't need help. Pretending that small and safe was enough. And then you walked into my life and asked me to pretend to be your wife, and somehow that lie became the first honest thing I'd felt in years. Lucy. I'm choosing you, I said clearly. Not because I'm trapped. Not because I'm afraid. Not because you've given me no choice. I'm choosing you because when I imagine my future, you're in it. And so is Marcus. And so is this terrifying, complicated, absolutely insane life we've built in 3 weeks. The Mafia boss was quiet for a long moment. Then, Marcus asked me yesterday if I was going to be his dad now. My breath caught. What did you say? I said that was up to his mom. And up to him. But that I'd like to be, if they'd have me. His thumb traced circles on my palm. He said I had to promise 3 things. 1. Never make you cry. 2. Teach him how to play chess. 3. Always come home. Tears were burning behind my eyes. Those are good rules. They're terrifying rules. The Mafia boss pulled me closer, resting his forehead against mine. I can't promise I'll never make you cry. I can't promise I'll always come home. This life doesn't come with guarantees. No life does. I wrapped my arms around his neck. But I'd rather have truth with risk than safety with lies. So I'm staying. Not temporarily. Not until the next threat. I'm staying because I choose this. I choose you. I choose us. The kiss was soft, tentative, like we were both afraid this moment might shatter. Then deeper, more certain, carrying the weight of everything we'd survived to get here. When we pulled apart, the Mafia boss's smile was real, unguarded. Marcus is going to hold me to that chess promise. He's going to beat you in 6 months. Probably. He tucked hair behind my ear. Your family is going to lose their minds. They already have. Might as well give them a real reason. I grinned. Besides, Aunt Caroline will dine out on this story for years. My niece married the most dangerous man in Chicago. She'll love the drama. And when people ask how we met, we tell them the truth. I leaned back, studying this man who'd become my partner, my choice, my future. I was alone at a wedding. You asked me to dance. And everything changed. Just like that. Just like that. The Mafia boss pulled me back into his arms, and we stood there as morning light painted the city gold beyond the windows. Somewhere out there, threats still existed. Rivals still circled. The world was still dangerous, still complicated, still unforgiving of mistakes. But we'd face it together. Not as captor and captive. Not as protector and protected. As partners. As equals. As something real that had grown from a lie whispered in desperation. I love you, I said quietly. I don't know when it happened. Maybe during that first dance. Maybe when you met Marcus and treated him like he mattered. Maybe 5 minutes ago. But it's true. The Mafia boss's arms tightened around me. I love you too. Terrifies me. But it's true. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the small revolution happening in a River North penthouse. People rushing to work, fighting traffic, living ordinary lives with ordinary problems. We'd never be ordinary. But maybe ordinary was overrated anyway. So, I said against his shoulder, when do we tell Marcus? Tell him what? That you're staying. That we're really doing this. That his bedroom here is permanent, not temporary. The Mafia boss pulled back, eyes searching mine. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He kissed me again, longer this time, deeper, carrying promises neither of us could fully keep but would spend a lifetime trying to honor. When we finally broke apart, the Mafia boss smiled. We should probably make this legal at some point. Actual wedding, not just the fake one your family thinks happened. Are you proposing? I'm negotiating terms. His grin was crooked, dangerous, perfect. You want a ring? Ceremony? The whole thing? I want the truth we've built. Everything else is just paperwork. Spoken like someone who's done a lot of medical billing. I laughed, and it felt like freedom. What began as a lie, a desperate performance on a dance floor, had become the truest thing I'd ever chosen. Not because it was safe. Not because it was easy. But because it was real. And real, I'd learned, was worth every risk. 6 months later *. Marcus beat the Mafia boss at chess in 5 months, not 6. He was insufferably proud about it. The wedding happened on a Saturday in April, small, private, with Mrs. Chen crying through the entire ceremony and my mother still processing that her disappointment daughter had somehow become the wife of Chicago's most feared man. Viktor Marchenko sent an expensive gift and a note, * to the only woman who ever negotiated me into submission. Congratulations, *. Derek's federal trial was set for fall. Vanessa had filed for divorce and returned to her family's estate, where Aunt Caroline reportedly visited weekly to hear about the scandal firsthand. And me? I still worked medical billing, still fought with insurance companies, still lived a life that looked almost ordinary from the outside. Except now I came home to a man who loved me without trying to own me. To a son who had a father figure who kept his promises. To a life that was dangerous and complicated and absolutely, perfectly mine. Some lies change everything. But the truth? The truth sets you free. If you're ready for the explosion coming in the next story, smash subscribe, hit like, and stay close for more mind-blowing and exciting stories.